Hi. Hi, my name is Myra Nolan, and I am with you guys this Thursday night, and we are. I'm part of Texas Housers and a member of the Texas Tenants Union for Change, and we are renters, concerned neighbors, and organizers across Texas who want to see better protections for tenants and ultimately equitable housing for all. In this series that we have, we hope to spotlight some of the biggest issues surrounding tenant rights and discuss ways we can solve them with policy change. And the beginning of our topic tonight is repairs. And to discuss tonight's topic, we have Sharon Underwood, who is a resident at a senior community in Houston, Texas. And we also have Sandy Rollins, the director of the Texas Tenants Union in Dallas, Texas. And we have Micho Jacob. He's the director of BASTA, which is out of Austin, and it stands for Building and Strengthening Tenant Actions. And we have Nate Walker, who is a research director at the Texas Housers Current Legislation Liaison tonight. So first of all, we're going to talk to Sharon Underwood, and she's going to tell us about some of the things that she's had to endure about repairs. Is Sharon there? Hi, Sharon. How you doing?
Hi, Sandy. I mean, Myra, I'm sorry.
Okay. That's fine. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
You're thinking about Sandy because we're all together in the same same
here. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, so tell us about some of the things that you had. Introduce yourself and tell us how you some of the experience that you had as a senior tenant with repairs.
Well, again, my name is Sharon Underwood, and I've been a tenant for over 20 years, and I live outside of Houston, like you said. And as a senior, we tend to be taken for granted, and sometimes we have to make our request over and over and over again. And where I live, they won't accept the request in writing. So, and for a long time, I didn't realize that things needed to be in writing. And right now, I go ahead and put it in writing anyway, whether they accept it or not.
Okay. So, can you tell us about some of the experience that you had during the pandemic, or a repair story that you would like to share with us regarding your community?
Well, for the most part, it's been okay, but there have been times when we needed to put our feet down and demand repairs.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, during the freeze, we were told the elevators would be out for 4 to 5 weeks.
4 to 5.
Yes, and we had heard that before, and we just accepted it. But this time, I knew something had to change, and it just was not going to go down that way. And I, along with a community member, took to Facebook and posted what was going on. And Facebook lit up, and the people were livid. And someone posted the phone number for the fire marshal and asked everybody to call, and everybody started calling the fire marshal.
Okay, what kind of results did you guys get calling the fire marshal?
The elevators were fixed. It did not take 4 to 5 weeks. They were told by one of the community advocates that the elevators needed to be fixed immediately, or the TV stations will be brought in.
Oh my goodness. So how many floors are we talking that you have in this community?
We have 4. And having those elevators out meant people would be stuck, unable to get down to the first floor in event of an emergency.
Exactly. Is some of the residents, are they in wheelchairs or walkers?
Some of them are bedridden, wheelchairs, walkers.
Okay. And so you had these repairs or this same scenario before, and they have told you guys that this was going to be out 4 or 5 weeks. Why would it take 4 or 5 weeks to get the elevator?
We were always told they would have to wait on a part.
A part takes that long, okay, and you have residents. So what exactly did y'all do? I mean, besides calling the fire marshal, what about the office? Did they get involved, or were you able, I mean, did anybody know their rights as a tenant during that time?
No,
Okay.
We did not. We just knew that it wasn't right, but we didn't know our rights as tenants, but we knew something had to be done.
Okay. So what came to your rescue? I mean, who came? Was there an organization, or did you, get part of did anybody call the Texas Tenants Union or any of the other organizations?
No, the community came to our rescue, and an organization called Kingwood Kindness.
Okay. And so Kingwood Kindness, they pretty much talked to the office and told the office that they were going to have the cameraman and the media come out and assess the situation. Now, what about as far as the fire marshal? Did they come out at all?
The fire marshal came out, and the fire marshal is actually what got the ball rolling.
Okay.
I mean, it was unacceptable because the office called me and said, the fire marshal said, if they get one more call, we're going
Mhm.
to have to evacuate everybody, and these people don't have anywhere to go.
Okay. Okay. Oh my goodness, that's horrible. So, what kind of things did they come in and do, or um, like King with Kindness? Did you guys have water? Did you have food? I mean, did they bring things to you guys? Is
They
that what?
brought, the community and King with Kindness brought water, tons of water, and the community was so generous until a chef here in Kingwood came. He brought his truck,
Uh-huh.
Firecracker Barbecue, brought
Oh,
their truck, and for about 2 weeks, every day they made hot meals for everybody.
okay. So, what did you learn from experience as a tenant, and how did you feel about maybe not knowing your rights as a tenant?
I felt that I had to do something. It
Okay.
couldn't go on like that because I needed to know exactly what to do
Hmm.
the next time anything like that happened.
Okay. So tell me about you becoming a tenant advocate then, and getting involved with what organization?
Well, initially, I registered, I had been a member of the Texas Tenants Union and I had not renewed my membership. I went
Mhm.
ahead and renewed my membership, and then got involved with Texas Housers
Okay.
and became a part of that academy.
Hmm.
And that's when I really started learning my rights
Okay.
and how to get repairs done.
Okay. And you feel like now, do you feel like you're more empowered because you know your rights as a tenant and you know how to go about following the steps to get repairs done?
Definitely. And I also know that when the office sees a repair request from me, I
Hmm.
think it's respected.
Okay. Okay. Now, have you been able to help any of the other tenants in your community?
Some
Okay.
by, just giving them advice on what to do. The
Okay.
biggest problem is getting people to put things in writing.
Okay. That's the biggest thing that you've seen. And why is that? I mean, do people um, just don't think about writing letters, or did the Texas Tenants Union, did they help you as far as writing letters and showing you what to do in that
There, 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 in some instances, the Texas Tenants Union, yes, they did.
okay. Hmm.
Even, drafting up letters for me.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
a lot of seniors feel intimidated
Hmm.
by people who they presume to be in power.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I can understand that part. Definitely understand that part. And so, with Texas Housers and Texas Tenants for Change, what type of things do you see with Texas Tenants for Change that you are advocating at this point?
With Texas Tenants for Change, I like the fact that it's a team, it's a group effort, and where there's numbers, there's
Mhm.
power.
Okay, that's always true. That's always true. And have you been doing anything as far as getting things for, I guess, 2023 to happen to the Texas legislature in 2023 and making changes there? Any type of, I heard you had a petition going on and you're trying to get signatures for Texas Tenants for Change.
Yes, working with the other members of Texas Tenants for Change and getting as many signatures as we can to present to the legislature in January. And hopefully we'll have improvements on evictions and repairs and
Hmm.
several other things.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So this petition that you have, is it electronically? Is it signatures that are handwritten for people to sign up? And can you tell me also, with gathering these signatures, exactly what it is that you plan on doing with these signatures?
Well, once we gather the signatures, they will be presented to the legislature in January.
Okay.
And we can get handwritten signatures. And if people will go on to Facebook, to Texas Tenants for Change, they can see the petition there and they can sign up online.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's a good thing. So Texas Tenants for Change. So you guys have a Facebook page also, Texas Tenants for Change.org, where you can find the petition. And you can also, I think you can find it at Texas Tenants Union also, or txtenants.org, and also on Texas Housers.org that you can find these things. Well, Sharon, I'm so glad that you shared your story with me, and I'm glad that you were able to get those repairs done and everything, went okay. I'm sorry you had to go through that experience, but I'm glad that you were able to learn and educate others about getting repairs done. And I think that's what's more important than anything. Now, with Texas Tenants for Change, do you have a mission for change with this organization?
Yes.
Like to see?
Yes, just to get improvements across Texas and to make more tenants aware of their rights.
Okay, that is so great. Well, thank you so very much for joining us, okay?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sharon. Our next person we have Sandy Rollins from the Texas Tenants Union in Dallas, Texas. And Sandy has been a part of Rights for Tenants for 40 plus years, correct, Sandy?
That's right.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about the organization?
Sure. So the Texas Tenants Union has been around since the 1970s.
Okay.
And it was formed to deal with substandard housing conditions and displacement and gentrification and unfair practices generally.
Okay.
Many of these topics, of course, are still things that we need to work on today.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last 40 plus years, the organization has done tenants' rights education. We do that through free workshops. We have written materials on tenants' rights. Our phone rings all day long, every day, with people facing eviction, trying to get a security deposit back, dealing with substandard conditions, other abusive and unfair practices that they're trying to maneuver through. We also do tenant organizing, both around at the apartment complex level as we can, and around public policy, because Texas is a very landlord-friendly state. And while we've made changes since the inception of the organization, much, much more is needed. And so we work to try to get the Texas legislature to pass decent laws that give tenants remedies when they're being treated unfairly.
Okay, I'm also going to bring in Micho Jacob. He is the director of BASTA in Austin, which stands for Building and Strengthening Tenant Action. Hi, Miko. How you doing?
Good. Glad I was ready to get popped in. I do want to correct. I'm not the director, because otherwise my boss.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Job. I'm the deputy director of the evictions team.
Okay, the evictions team. Wow. Okay.
Or preventing evictions team.
Can you tell me a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Like Sandy, we definitely followed in the great leadership that they provided in the state of working to organize tenants is the bread and butter of BASTA, helping tenants develop leadership and organize to demand their rights. The state of Texas is not a great place for tenant rights, and even the few that do exist, the few protections there are often are ignored, and it's important for tenants to demand their rights be recognized.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you guys a few questions here. Sandy, what rights does a tenant have for repairs here in Texas?
Well, there is the law on the books. It says landlords are obligated to maintain a property so that it's not a threat to the physical health and safety of an ordinary tenant. But this is not an automatic law. There are certain things tenants have to do rights to hold their landlords accountable for these repairs. And as you and Sharon had talked about earlier, putting things in writing is an important step. And a lot of times tenants are discouraged from doing that by the landlord, or they're discouraged from doing it in probably the most effective way. So the way it's supposed to be done is either one request for repair or remedy to who you pay the rent to, or the landlord's designated representative that's listed in the lease contract. And for an apartment complex, that's almost always going to be the on-site manager, but look at the lease to make sure. The other thing is tenants have to be paid up on the rent at the time they do this and going forward. Because if the tenant owes the landlord money, in Texas, the landlord has no obligation to make the repairs under our state law. So many other states allow tenants to withhold rent or pay into an escrow account if the landlord isn't doing what they're supposed to do. But in Texas, that's not a way to proceed with this. So be paid on the rent, and it's either give one request for repair or remedy by certified mail, return receipt requested through the post office, or any trackable form of delivery through the post office or a private delivery service. So it could go priority mail, certified mail, UPS, FedEx. And if it's not sent by a trackable form of delivery, then 2 requests for repairs are required. And given a request for repairs, it's really important to have more than your word against the landlords that you gave it. So that's, while it costs to send something through the post office by certified mail, it will get you proof that they got it. And so, and sometimes it also causes the landlord to take the tenant more seriously. And so once the letter goes, that's when a clock starts ticking. And the landlord is supposed to make a good faith, diligent effort to repair or remedy whatever the problem is within a reasonable period of time. And that's presumed to be 7 days.
7 days. Okay. So what about, I hear, they say, well, you can email it from the portal or, pick up the phone and call them. Exactly where, I guess I'm thinking, where actually in the lease does it say exactly that they need a written request? I'm just thinking of the TAA lease that we have, that a lot of people have. So, and I know that the lease went from an 8-pager to a 6-pager. So what are some of those changes that that has been made? We're seeing a TAA lease up here, the Texas Apartment Association lease that we're having here. And then do we have a picture of the number 15 there, Michael? If not, that's okay.
Yeah, so
about repairs.
Right. When it is number 15 in the new version of the lease that talks about the need for the repair to be in writing. The new version, which came out in January of this year, no longer requires a tenant to have a signature on the letter. Anyone who signed last year's version of the lease was required to sign the letter, which meant that the texting and the emailing and the phone calls when it has to be in writing won't work anyway, but it's not a proper request. They have removed the requirement for a signature to be on the letter in this year's version of the Texas Apartment Association lease. So when they're saying it must be entered in our portal system, or you've got to fill out the work order that's here in the office, or that's fine to do if it works.
Yeah.
If they're going to respond to it, nobody would be calling us if that worked. But people do call us because oftentimes it doesn't work. They'll put it in the portal and all of a sudden it's shown as fixed when the tenant, like all they did was come by and look and do nothing, or spray bleach on the mold and paint over it, or something along those lines that's inadequate.
So how many phone calls do you guys get, maybe a week or a day, about repairs? And then,
well, yeah, I don't have it broken down specifically by repairs I know it, depending on the time of the year, we get
Okay.
between 70 and 100 plus phone calls in a
Oh
day.
my gosh.
Not everybody can, we're on the phone, so we
Mhm.
don't have the capacity to answer each of those calls. Not everybody leaves a message.
Yeah.
So a portion of those tenants will leave a message. We
Okay.
call everybody back as soon as we can. But
Okay.
it's the demand is huge, and I'd say probably 30, maybe 35% of those are repair
Issues.
calls,
Okay.
similar or more related to eviction. The rest on
Mhm.
other topics.
Okay. So, Micho, you want to take the next question here?
Sure.
What are some of the tenant remedies if the landlord ignores their repair request?
So there are remedies, but it's really complicated, and you should be very careful. Like Sandy was saying, the landlord will be like, "Put it on the portal,"
Mm-hmm.
and I've worked at a lot of properties that we've organized around, and the portal gets reset, so there is no
Okay.
repair request. So if that tenant, like Sandy says, I'm not going to pay rent because they didn't make my repairs, you will find yourself in court, most likely in front of a justice of the peace, and you will likely get evicted. I mean, like, it's a pretty high chance. So you definitely, if you're having some issues, first and foremost, document everything. Document that you made a request. Take a picture of it. Shoot a video of yourself putting it in the mailbox at the office. Whatever. You just want to have documentation. Everything. Evidence is so important when you go to court. And the remedy really is to go to court. So if you're having a lot of repair issues, organizing and talking to your neighbors is a really big way to make sure that you're likely all having these similar issues. If you really do want to push further issues, talking to an attorney, looking at, depending on where you're in the state, Lone Star Legal Aid, Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. There's several places that you can find pro bono legal services. But you don't want to just not pay rent. That is the worst thing you can do. I watch eviction courts. So many people they get to court and I did not pay rent because I have snakes or bats coming to something that's intense. It sounds horrible, right? Like bats. Yeah, why are you doing it? Does not matter. If you don't pay rent, the judge does not care. They will not. They will just say, you didn't pay rent. And we're going to evict you. And that's terrible and it's unjust. But it is the law in the state of Texas. So organizing is really important. Talking to your neighbors, coming up with collective action. I really liked your previous guests. They talked about going on the news, getting that documentation, taking photos, videos. I mean, it's like our healthcare system. You have to do. There's like GoFundMe's to be able to do this because the system is not doing well. Same with repairs and tenant rights. Sometimes you do have to go to the news, doing something, and then the authorities might act. But you really don't want to just go it alone. And again, reach out to organizations like Texas Tenant Union, BASTA. There's a lot of different places to talk to folks, and it's not an easy solution. I mean, there is going to need to be, I think, the work that y'all are doing, looking legislatively, because yes, there is poor protections, and you just want to make sure you do things in writing. If a landlord says they're not going to take a written repair request in writing, like Sandy said, do it on their portal, whatever, that's great. But you definitely want to do the property code route so that you, in front of a judge, again, like if you end up in court for eviction, or if you're trying to force the judge to do something, they want evidence. An anecdote is not going to make anything change, So if you have photos, videos, documentation, then you have a much stronger case. And I'm always impressed when I see tenants come like that. I'm like, yes. You have the evidence.
They're prepared.
Yes, and I mean, so many of us have smartphones, and I know not everybody does too, because life is expensive right now. But if you do have that, take a picture of everything.
Yes.
You can record a conversation. In the state of Texas, that's legal. I sometimes put my phone in my pocket and I just record conversations. I have documentation. It's totally legal. So. I don't know if Sandy has anything to add in on there too.
I wanted to add that sending a letter by certified mail, it's not a magic wand. It doesn't automatically cause the landlord to treat you with respect. but you'd be surprised how much it does. There are a lot of tenants who have been asking, pleading, begging, doing the portals, texting, emailing, submitting the work orders over and over and over again, and have been ignored. And sometimes when that certified letter goes, you're kicking it up a notch. It's more formal, and sometimes the landlord will take you more seriously. And the other thing that can sometimes work is, while the request for repairs has to go to the landlord's designated representative, again, often the on-site manager in an apartment complex, you can still CC or send copies to outside parties. So just like you can CC on an email, you can CC somebody on a paper letter. And you might want to CC the owner or the management company or elected officials. It's a way to help call them out more publicly. And it's not just between you and me anymore. But if you're going to ignore the lack of heat and lack of air conditioning and you know, no hot water and other concerns, you know, if they see that other people also are aware that this is how you're being treated, it might cause them to treat you with a little bit more respect and get on the repairs more quickly. Doesn't always work, but I've seen it happen more than once.
Okay, and I think in the chat we're putting BASTA and the Texas Tenants Union websites in the comments. And if anybody has any questions or comments that they want to make in the chat, please do so. And we'll continue here. I had a question about, you said the CC. My question was for Miko. Do you guys get the same thing as far as a lot of repairs, questions down there? A lot of things that are, I don't want to center on the pandemic part, but you know, what has been your experience for BASTA?
I mean, definitely in the pandemic, people were stuck at home, and if you had a lot of mold, that was going to affect you in a much more serious way. And you know, both property owners and code enforcement are kind of hesitant to deal with mold. You know, they're like, that's a result of those. But we know that leaky pipes will cause mold, and like, there's a lot of people who say the science is still out on mold and its health effects. But Dell Medical recently did a health advisory on the health effects of mold. It really does have some long-lasting serious effects, especially for children and for elderly folks. So in the wake of the winter storm, we saw really horrible issues, people with massive flooding, that incredible mold. There were apartment complexes where there were mushrooms growing.
Oh, goodness.
Mushrooms. The repairs that had been started, you know, they tore down a wall and there was insulation, but they never finished it. And Sandy mentioned this in like a repair. There's a reasonable amount of time that a landlord has. It's very vague. It should be 7 days is what everybody thinks. But in the wake of the winter storm, people were like, well, I can't get valves or this, or there's no plumbers. And that was legitimately, sometimes there were things that were problems, but you also had years of neglect where they hadn't repaired pipes or insulated pipes, all sorts of problems. So, you know, you should definitely, again, I think a lot of people too, like, they're hesitant, you know, rock the boat. You know, I'm living check to check. I have a lot of problems. I don't want to get evicted. And that's the power of the landlord here, the power of eviction. I don't want to rock the boat, but you know, the squeaky wheel does get the grease in this system too. And that's a good thing. And your neighbors is a good thing too, so that you're not going at it alone. Another thing you can do, and this depends a lot on where you live and how your city, how robust their code department is, but you don't have to be up to date on rent to call the code department if there is something that is affecting your safe or health.
Your health and safety. Okay.
Yeah, you can call 311 in Austin, and I'm the most cities, and you can call for the code department and they can come. And that is a campaign that a lot of our tenants association works on. I'm sure Sandy sees this too, to like get it elevated. You know, there's a repeat offender program in Austin where those properties that have big problems may eventually lose their right to lease to new units if they have repeated violations. So that hasn't happened very often. And again, the law doesn't always go the way that it should be, but again, you just have to push. And unfortunately, that's the system we're in. But Again, talk to other people. You're not alone. If you're
Okay.
not getting repairs, your neighbor's not either.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Especially with these big apartment complexes that we have nowadays. Okay, I have another question. I think Sandy or Micho would like to take. What are some of the other things tenants need to know about dealing with their landlord on repairs, or like retaliation and withholding your rent? Micho talked about withholding your rent. It's not a good idea to do. And are there no counterclaims in eviction cases? Some of those things.
Yeah. So retaliation is illegal.
Okay.
But the protection is for up to 6 months from the time the tenant takes an action to trigger their rights, which can be in a request for repair or standing up for exercising any right that's granted to you in lease, state, local, or federal law. It includes establishing, attempting to establish, or participating in a tenant group. Those are all protected activities for up to 6 months. We think that up to 6 months ought to be removed, but there is some protection there. It's only good if you're in compliance with your lease. So you want to make sure that you're not a minute late on the rent down the road, because they'll use that. They will come after people and can get away with it if you owe the landlord money or otherwise in violation of your lease contract. And like Micho, I've been in the Justice of the Peace courts for seen eviction cases. I've talked to tenants over the years, and they're just sure that, I want my landlord to take me to court, because when the judge hears this, they're going to judge in my favor. They'll be appalled at how I've been treated. Unfortunately, that is not the way it works in this state. And so sometimes judges will listen, but they'll usually also say that's a separate issue. And so there's no counterclaims in eviction cases. So it doesn't really matter how poorly you've been treated, how bad the conditions are. In this state right now, you're expected to pay rent on time each and every month. And if you don't, then the consequence and the remedy for the landlord is to follow through with the eviction process. So again, I think tenants need more protections in that area for sure.
Okay. So true. Now, do you guys have any other thoughts for the final thoughts for this segment here we have for the tenants and people that are viewing our live stream here that you want to say, Micho? And then Sandy.
Sure.
Is there a couple of things that you want people to, tenants to, take from this and remember to do, sort of?
I say this to everybody I talk to, and this is what attorneys have told me just document everything.
Okay.
Just document it. You will not be sad that you have a text message saved or a voicemail or whatever. Just document everything. That's the best advice, I think, on just repairs or anything. And then save your lease and look at your lease. It's a very important document that determines so many things that so many people don't even know where it is. So look at your lease, document everything. Pass to you, Sandy.
Keep excellent records. Keep copies of everything that you give them, everything they give you. Have proof your landlord receives things. If you don't get a rent receipt, make a picture of your check or money order. Do a screenshot if you're paying online. Those things are just super important down the road. And when you're dealing with either incompetent managers or vindictive managers or a revolving door of managers, you've got to have your own very, very good records to be safe.
Okay. We do have a question. Sandy got a question that includes me. It says, Tyler and I have been talking with Sandy in regards to this matter. I've sent certified letters and emails. Is there someone I can call, such as an inspector, to come to my home? Do you see that, Sandy?
Yeah. So some cities have code enforcement and a minimum property standards code, and we'll send an inspector out to check to see if there are violations of that code. And it does vary from place to place. So the city of Dallas, you can call 311. Austin, you can call 311. San Antonio, you can call 311. Some cities have code enforcement, and they use a 7 or 10 digit number that you'll need to check with your city and find out. But if you need help, you can contact our organization. I use Google when I'm talking to people over the phone, the name of the town, code enforcement or code compliance, to find out who to reach out to.
Okay. Is that the same thing in Austin, Micho? As far as the code enforcement, are they pretty good about responding to tenants?
It's been evolving, and I think Sandy made a really good point, like revolving managers and bad management. And again, like that happens in the cities too. And like, I mean, Houston, I know, has the same number of code enforcement officers I think that Austin does. It's 4 times as big. So you should definitely call. And again, it's just like a property manager, the squeaky wheel. Sometimes you got to call them a bunch and bug them. But that code is there, and they have been getting a lot better. And there's actually a citywide tenants union in Austin that meets regularly with code department to give back feedback, and it's been helpful a lot. So there is engaging with your council members and things like that too, to ask about those issues is really important too, and it's something that a lot of folks don't think about till the moment they need it.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys for spending this segment with us. Sandy Rollins from the Texas Tenants Union in Dallas, Texas, and Micho Jacob from Basta, that's in Austin, Texas. We're going to wrap this session up, and we're going to go to our next guest, which is Nate Walker. And Nate, how you doing, Nate?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Myra. Good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do with the Texas Housers, and exactly what your role is?
Sure. I'm the legislative liaison for Texas Housers, so I handle all of their government relations, managing their legislative priorities, basically working, to support good tenants' rights legislation in the Texas legislature, and to oppose bills that would be harmful to tenants. I've been working around the legislature now since 2003, started off as a staff member and became an advocate lobbyist in 2015, which is when I joined Texas Housers.
Okay. So you've been around for a while doing this.
I have, not quite as long as Sandy. I'm still learning from her every day.
Okay.
But I have been doing this for a while, and tenant rights was an issue that I became passionate about in my very first session back in 2003. And I was lucky enough to work for several legislators who really prioritized the issue. So I've been proud to be a small part of that fight now for a couple of decades.
Okay. One of the questions, so you've seen, we had changes in the past, and hopefully we'll have changes in the present, but what are some of those changes that you've seen that has helped tenants that we have going on right now as far as repairs are concerned?
Not a lot.
Not a lot? Okay.
To be honest, we're in an unfortunate position in Texas as tenants, where most of the landlord-tenant code has been drafted by landlord-friendly legislators and their special interests. So it's been an uphill battle. Most of the big changes, unfortunately, have occurred in the courts rather than Texas legislature in terms of positive changes. So fortunately, we end up having to be creative. And I've really enjoyed listening to your previous guest talk about ways of leveraging, the media, the fire code, and many times, unfortunately, attorneys, whether it's or organizations like Micho's and Costa, that have just been extremely helpful in raising awareness, putting pressure on, and convincing landlords to do the right thing and repair that need to be repaired for tenants' well-being.
Okay. Okay. And so as far as do we have any bills that are going on for the coming legislature in
We do have the Texas
2023?
Tenants Bill of Rights, which is a bill that has not been introduced yet.
Okay.
It was filed last session.
Mhm.
I do expect it to be filed again when the legislature reconvenes in January. And it does include a provision in there for right to prompt repairs for tenants. So that's something that we're going to be supportive of. It is going to be another uphill battle. We do expect the Landlords Association to likely oppose that bill.
Okay. Okay. So as far as different states, as far as Texas, do you feel like Texas is behind in tenant laws for tenants that favor tenants or help tenants?
Absolutely. I mean, we've heard from your previous speakers about the actual rights that tenants have,
Mhm.
but really, these rights include things like being able to break your lease or reducing your rent potentially, but that's going to be left up to the court. Other states actually allow tenants to just go ahead and withhold their rent until these repairs are made. In Texas, one of the things that hasn't been mentioned, the only time a tenant actually has a right to these repairs is if it affects the health and safety of a typical tenant,
Mm-hmm.
and if the tenant is not responsible for that damage.
Okay.
So first of all, you have to clear those two hurdles. It has to actually affect your health and safety. You can't be responsible for the damage. You can't be late on rent. And then, who's going to know off the top of their head that in order to be taken seriously, they have to send certified return receipt mail.
Exactly.
So a tenant sends that in, and then the landlord has 7 days to acknowledge it. And let's assume they didn't send certified. Then they have to make a second attempt and then wait another 7 days for something that literally affects their health and safety. So yes, many other states are in much better shape in terms of their right to repair laws for tenants than Texas. We have a long way to go.
Okay, I have a question. Would you like to see a tenant's bill of rights? Would that help as far as Sharon was talking about Texas Tenants for Change doing the petition? Do you think that that's going to, or that would help as far as getting some changes done in 2023?
I think the petition is going to be extremely helpful. We need as many people to sign that as possible. Sandy and I have been at it for a long time, but we're just two regular people in the building talking, and it doesn't mean nearly as much as 100 or several hundred tenants who have actually faced real life consequences of landlords failing to make prompt repairs, coming in, telling their stories. We're lucky to have you all because you represent cities and counties from across the state, and you're able to talk to your specific legislators and help us to build support, because we obviously need a majority of the House and the Senate to make real change. So I do feel good about the position we're in, and it's really exciting. I've never seen organization quite like this.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that you feel like that things could change and by signing the petition and getting involved with Texas Tenants for Change and getting involved with, helping others or educating others about things that we need to change here in the state of Texas as far as tenants are concerned. Are there any other things that are on the petition that you know about as far as, other changes that we are going to have to make or want to make?
I think that there are a litany of changes that tenants need made in Texas, but I think the petition is a big first step in that, but it's going to take a lot more. It's going to take, people reaching out directly and having one-on-one conversations with their legislators. Texas Tenants for Change is going to get updates from Texas Housers on tenant rights bills that are out there in the legislature that we need help on. So there will be opportunities where it's going to be important to have regular folks come in to committee hearings and share their experiences and why a bill would be a positive improvement. There will be plenty of opportunities throughout the legislative session beginning in January for tenants to have an impact on real legislation.
Now, when you have those bills that come into play, are there separate parties that are backing the TAA? I want to say the Texas Association. As far as like Democrat, Republicans, or is it just cross platforms, or just people that are just going and I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the.
We've seen good and bad bills. We've seen good and bad bills filed by members of both parties. Typically, I will myself and other guests will as well on opposite sides of groups like the Texas Apartment Association, the Texas Realtors Association, for example. Those are very powerful money differences. So we have to take them very seriously. Many times, we can't find common ground with them. Sometimes we're able to, and that makes it very easy to pass a bill. But as of now, they have had such a strong hand in drafting the landlord-tenant code that they don't feel like they need to give a lot. So we have to fight even harder.
Okay. So you think it'll make a difference for this Texas Tenants for Change to go before the legislature and be able to tell their stories, and then also have their signatures for this petition throughout all renters that are in Texas? And from what I understand, we have people that are in Lubbock, people that are in Austin, Houston, Dallas, and everybody's trying to go all out and get these or gather these signatures, from what I understand. I am trying to see, I have a question in here for you, I think. Let's move to this part. Engaging in topics that okay. What emotionally did these conversations bring up for you? As fellows in the Texas Housers Fellowship, we have been engaging the topic of eviction and tenant rights for a few months now. Was there anything new that you learned from the conversation today? I don't know if that's me or for you, Nate, but I can say that. Do you want to answer that, or?
I mean, I learned a lot just from listening to Micho and Sandy and Ms. Underwood about, actual real life experiences and how they got solved. Because so many times for me at the legislature, I'm just staring at, statute, right? Mm-hmm. So in this case, it's good to know what people are actually having to go through in order to get things done. And frankly, kind of sad how creative and how hard tenants have to work to actually get a landlord to take something seriously that's affecting that tenant's health and safety. But good to hear that there are many resources available. I do have another client that I represent on funding issues only, that's Texas Rio Grande. And I know that many, I don't want to say a majority, but many of the cases that they take on are representing tenants, and many of those are in rare cases like this. So I know that a lot of times when all other resources are exhausted, people end up, or a private attorney, or if they qualify, reach out to legal aid and get an attorney and get into court and make sure that they have a solid case. So yeah, so it's great to hear real life stories.
Okay. Well, that's good. Now, any final thoughts that you have for tenants and tenant rights or for repairs that you can offer us?
Rest up, enjoy the holidays, because we're really going to need you. We're going to need everybody. It's going to be a big session for tenants, but it's going to be a big fight. So we need a lot of energy.
Okay. Well, that'll be good. That'll be very good. Well, thank you so very much for joining us tonight, Nate. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Great to be here. Thank you, Myra.
All right. Thank you. Okay, you guys. Well, we are so glad that we've had this discussion about repairs, and I hope you guys learned something from repairs. I think, there's a lot of emotional conversations that have come up about tenants and tenants' rights, and some of what Miss Underwood had went through. And I hope that everybody will go and seek out Texas Tenants for Change. Join the Facebook group. It's texastenantsforchange.org. I encourage you to get involved, to sign the petition, be a part of something that's going to help everyone, because I'm sure everyone has been a tenant at some point in time. So it's very important that we all, as Texans, stick together, because you just never know at any point in time that, you could be homeless, or someone in your family could have a problem, repair issue, or eviction. And so this petition is going to help everyone. And I'm just encouraging everyone to go to Texas Tenants for Change, go to TexasTenantsUnion.org or TXTenants.org. I'm sorry, BASTA, get involved. I think that there's also I think I have a question here. Is how I alongside legal aid services. Is that for me? But do we have any more questions from anybody? I hope everybody did learn something, and that you will get, like I say, again, involved. Usually what happens is people don't care about anything until it happens to them. And I always feel like that we should try to support each other. I know that my experience that I had is in getting involved and becoming a tenant advocate for TexasTenantsUnion.org and Texas Tenants for Change, and being involved with the Texas Housers Association. I have learned so much, and I have taken what I've learned and moved it to other people and taught other people and helped other people. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's something that here in Texas, of course, Texas is so big, and I think that together we can make a lot of changes. If there's no more questions, let's see. Okay. All right, so thank you very much for joining us on this Thursday night. If you have any questions, please go on to TexasTenantsForChange.org and join the Facebook, and or also sign the petition. I really appreciate everybody joining us, and thank you for our guests, Sharon Underwood, Sandy Rollins, Miko Jacob, and Nate Walker. And we'll see you guys again pretty soon for another episode of Spotlight for Change. Okay? Thank you. Bye.